Every night for 8 months, she swallowed the pill her husband gave her. Every night for 8 months, she lost hours of her life. Every night for 8 months, while she lay unconscious in the bed they shared, her husband made phone calls, moved money, and built a case designed to destroy her. And every morning, she woke up exhausted, confused, and a little less sure of herself than she had been the day before. That was the plan. That was exactly the plan. Until the night she held the pill against her cheek instead of swallowing it. Until the night she lay perfectly still in the darkness and listened. Until the night she heard her husband's voice on the phone, calm, satisfied, certain, describing exactly how he intended to have her declared mentally incompetent, strip her of everything she had worked for, and disappear her into a memory care facility while he spent her money and lived his life. Her name is Nadine. She is 43 years old. She is a woman who spent 8 months being systematically poisoned by the man she loved. And she is the woman who woke up. This story is going to take a long time to tell, because it took a long time to happen, and it deserves to be told completely, honestly, and without rushing past the parts that are hardest to hear. Stay until the end, because the ending is not just justice, it is transformation. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. To understand what was done to Nadine, you first need to understand who Nadine was before it was done to her. Because the people who run these kinds of schemes, the methodical, patient, long-game schemes, they don't choose victims randomly. They choose specifically. They choose women who have something worth taking, who have built something worth stealing, who are strong enough to be worth breaking down. Nadine Carter had built something. She had grown up in Atlanta, the second of 4 daughters born to a schoolteacher mother and a postal worker father, who believed, with every fiber of their beings, that their children would exceed them. That was non-negotiable in the Carter household. You exceeded, you worked, you built. You did not stop. Nadine had not stopped. By 43, she was the director of operations for a regional healthcare network, overseeing a budget of $12 million and a staff of 240 people. She had bought her own home at 31. She had a retirement account that made her financial advisor smile every time they met. She had a circle of friends she had known since college, a sister named Renee who was her closest confidant, and a laugh that people described as the kind that made the whole room feel warmer. She also had, she would later say, a very unfortunate talent for trusting people who presented well. Marcus Webb had presented exceptionally well. She met him at a conference in Charlotte, a regional summit on healthcare administration. He was charming, well-dressed, attentive in the specific way of a man who has studied how to make a woman feel like the most interesting person in the room. And he asked questions and actually listened to the answers. He remembered small details she mentioned and referenced them weeks later. He was thoughtful, consistent, and unhurried. She fell in love with him over 18 months of what felt like genuine courtship. She married him at 41. Standing at the altar, looking at him in his perfectly fitted suit, she had thought, I chose well. After all the wrong ones, I finally chose well. She had not chosen well. But she would not know that for another 2 years. The first year of marriage was good, or it seemed good. Marcus was attentive, involved, interested in her work and her life. He was the kind of husband who left coffee on her nightstand before she woke up, who remembered the names of her colleagues, who sent flowers to her office on random Tuesdays for no reason other than to make her smile. Renee liked him. Her mother liked him. Her friends liked him. Everyone liked Marcus Webb. That was the thing about Marcus Webb. Everyone liked him. And the ones who didn't quite like him couldn't articulate why, couldn't point to a specific thing. It was just a feeling, a slightly off note in an otherwise flawless performance. Nadine's college roommate, Patricia, had once said after meeting Marcus at a dinner party, "He's wonderful. I just can't tell if he knows it or if he needs you to know it." Nadine had laughed it off. Patricia had always been perceptive to the point of uncomfortable. She thought about that comment a lot in the months that followed. The sleeping medication appeared in month 14 of their marriage. Not dramatically. Not all at once. That was the genius of it, if you could call something that monstrous genius. It started with concern. Nadine, you look tired. Are you sleeping well? Then observation. You've been tossing and turning. I can hear you from across the room. Have you always had trouble sleeping? Then gentle suggestion. My friend is a physician. He says a short course of sleep medication can reset your body's rhythm. Nothing heavy, just something to help you get proper rest. Then escalation. You really do need to see someone about this. It's affecting your health, your focus. Don't you think? By the time the prescription appeared with her name printed neatly on the label, she had been so thoroughly prepared to accept it that she didn't question it at all. Dr. Okafor says this will help, Marcus told her, setting the bottle on her nightstand like a gift. Short term, just to get you back on track. She trusted him. She took the pill, and she went to sleep. She would not truly wake up again for 8 months. The fog did not arrive suddenly. That is the thing that made it so effective, so impossible to identify while she was inside it. It arrived the way a season changes, gradually. A degree here, a degree there. One morning you look up and realize it is cold outside, and you cannot pinpoint the exact day that summer ended. The first thing she noticed was the exhaustion. She was sleeping 10, 11, sometimes 12 hours, and waking up feeling as though she had not slept at all. Her body felt heavy, waterlogged, like moving through something thicker than air. She blamed her schedule, her stress levels, and the demands of overseeing a healthcare network during a period of significant expansion. You're doing too much, Marcus told her. You need to slow down. Then came the memory gaps, small ones at first, misplacing her keys, forgetting conversations she'd had, reading the same paragraph 3 times without absorbing it. She attributed this to stress, to age, to the mental load of managing a complex organization. It's normal, Marcus said. You carry so much. Your brain is overloaded. Then the gaps grew larger. She would arrive at meetings and have no memory of scheduling them. She would find emails in her sent folder that she had no recollection of writing. Once she discovered that she had apparently called a vendor at 2 in the morning and left a rambling voicemail that made almost no sense. She had no memory of making the call. Oh, you did it in your sleep, Marcus said, showing her the call log with an expression of gentle concern. I've been researching it. Sleep disorders can cause parasomnia. People do all sorts of things while they're technically asleep. We need to talk to Dr. Okafor about adjusting your medication. She believed him. She believed him because she had no alternative explanation, because the gaps in her memory left spaces that his explanations filled, because when you cannot trust your own recollection, you begin to rely on the recollections of the people around you. And Marcus was always there, always ready with an explanation, always patient, always concerned, always the devoted husband managing his wife's worrying decline. Renee noticed before Nadine did. That is the thing about the people who love us. They see us from the outside, out from a perspective we cannot access ourselves. Renee had driven up from Savannah for a weekend visit in month 5. She had stood in the kitchen watching her sister move through her own house with a particular kind of careful uncertainty, like someone navigating unfamiliar terrain, and felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. Dean, she said, using the nickname she had called her sister since childhood. Look at me. Nadine had looked up, and Renee had seen it. The slight unfocus in her eyes, the way she paused before answering simple questions as if she needed extra time to process, the weight she had lost without seeming to notice, the laugh that had dimmed. Are you okay? I'm fine, just tired. How long have you been this tired? Nadine had thought about it. A while, she said finally. I'm not sure. When did you start the medication? And Nadine had thought about that too, and realized she could not remember exactly. The before and after had blurred into something continuous and seamless, and she could no longer identify where one had ended and the other begun. That night, Renee had sat in the guest room and cried quietly into her pillow. Then she had gotten up, dried her face, and started paying very close attention. She began keeping notes, dates, observations, things Nadine said and didn't say, behaviors that seemed off, questions Marcus deflected, the way he monitored Nadine's meals, her schedule, her communications, with the attentiveness of someone managing an asset rather than loving a spouse. She said nothing to Nadine yet. She was building something. She did not know what she was building yet, but she could feel that she would need it. Meanwhile, Nadine continued drowning. Her performance at work began to slip in ways she could not explain and could not stop. She arrived at meetings unprepared when she had always been the most prepared person in the room. She missed a budget deadline she had never missed in 11 years. She repeated herself in presentations. Her assistant, a young woman named Kyla, who had worked for her for 4 years and admired her enormously, began looking at her with an expression that Nadine could not interpret and did not want to examine too closely. At home, Marcus continued to express concern. To colleagues, he expressed concern. To her mother, he expressed concern. He was, everyone agreed, a remarkable husband. So patient, so devoted, so genuinely worried about his wife. In month 7, Nadine started having a feeling. She could not name it. Could not point to its source. It lived underneath the fog, underneath the exhaustion and confusion, in some part of her that the medication had not fully reached. Something is wrong, the feeling said. Not with you. To you. She did not listen to it right away. She had been told too many times by then that her perceptions were unreliable, that she was tired and stressed and needed rest and management and care. But the feeling did not stop. It got louder. And one night, in month 8, lying in bed watching the amber glow of the lamp while Marcus stood over her with a glass of water and a small white pill resting in his palm, she looked at his face and saw something she had never let herself see before. He was not looking at her with concern. He was looking at her with anticipation. The same way, she would think later, and a chess player looks at a board when they are 3 moves from checkmate. She took the pill. She went to the bathroom. She spat it out, and everything changed. She lay in the bed with her heart hammering so loudly she was certain he could hear it. Her breathing was controlled, slow, deep, even. The breathing of a woman deeply asleep. 7 years of management experience had taught her how to perform composure under pressure. Tonight, that skill would keep her alive. The pill was in her cheek, dissolving slightly, leaving a bitter chemical taste that she filed away as information. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed for 8 minutes. She counted. Then he stood. His footsteps moved to his phone. She heard the faint sound of it unlocking, then his voice, low and unhurried, or the voice of a man completely in control of his situation. She just went under. Give me 20 minutes. The accounts are positioned. Hammond has everything he needs for the evaluation. If we push the timeline up, we can file before the end of the month. She had no idea who Hammond was yet. She would learn. The medication has been working perfectly. She's compliant, manageable. Her colleagues are already concerned. I've been planting seeds for months. By the time this goes to a judge, there will be a documented pattern that nobody can dispute. Compliant, manageable. The words landed in her chest like stones dropped into still water. She had spent 20 years building a career. 20 years of 6 a.m. mornings and late-night strategy sessions and difficult negotiations and impossible decisions made with steady hands. She was many things. She was not manageable. The lamp clicked off. Darkness. Marcus's footsteps moved down the hallway. A door opened and closed. She waited. 15 minutes, counting every second. Then she moved. She retrieved the pill from her cheek and sealed it in a small Ziploc bag she kept in her nightstand. She had started keeping Ziploc bags in her nightstand 3 weeks ago without consciously understanding why. Some part of her had known. Some part had been preparing even while the rest of her was drowning. She found her phone and switched it to record. She opened the bedroom door. The hallway was dark except for the strip of light beneath his office door at the far end. The door he had always kept locked. The private sanctuary. The workspace he needed separate from everything else. See, she moved along the wall where the floorboards were less likely to creak. This was her home. She knew where to step. At the office door, his voice became clearer. "We need the psychiatric evaluation finalized before we file. Hammond needs to create session notes for at least 3 more visits. I want documentation spanning a full year by the time this reaches a judge." A pause. "No, the prescriptions are legitimate. Everything is above board on paper. The dosage manipulation is untraceable. She signs off on everything when she's under and she doesn't remember it afterward. She signs off on everything when she's under." Nadine's hand found the wall. She leaned against it. She breathed. She did not cry. She was not going to cry. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What about her sister? Marcus's response was dismissive. Renee has instincts, but no evidence. By the time we file, the competency case will be airtight. Renee can object all she wants. Family denial is expected. It actually supports the narrative. And the assets? The house appraised at $680,000. Retirement accounts are at $540,000. The investment portfolio is roughly $800,000. Between the joint account I've been building and the conservatorship, I'll have access to the full picture within 60 days of the hearing. 60 days. He had a timeline. He was 60 days from finishing what he had started. She gathered herself. She documented. She photographed the crack of light beneath the door. She kept the recording running. She noted the time, the date, every detail her mind could capture. Then she heard him say, "Let me check on her. Make sure the medication took properly tonight." She moved. And controlled, silent, purposeful. Back down the hallway, into the bedroom, under the covers, eyes closed, breathing slow. His footsteps approached. The bedroom door opened. He stood in the doorway for a long moment. She felt him watching her. She did not move. Finally, he walked to her side of the bed and stood over her. She heard him exhale, satisfied. "Good," he murmured to himself. He left the room. She lay in the darkness with her eyes open and her mind working with a clarity she had not felt in 8 months. Because the fog was gone. Every piece of it. And what was underneath the fog was not the confused, deteriorating woman Marcus had been working so carefully to create. What was underneath was the person she had always been. Determined, strategic, precise. She had been managing a $12 million operation for 6 years. She had navigated boardrooms full of people who wanted things from her and boardrooms full of people who wanted her gone. She had outlasted budget cuts and organizational restructuring and every other threat that a complex institution throws at the people inside it. She was very, very good at her job. And her husband had just made the mistake of reminding her of that. Because dismantling what Marcus Webb had built against her was going to require exactly the skills that job had given her. She reached under her pillow and found her phone. She uploaded the recording to 3 separate cloud accounts. She sent a single text to Renee. "I know. Don't react. Don't call. I'll explain everything. Keep this message." Then she deleted the sent message. She lay back against the pillow. Outside, a car passed on the street below. And the refrigerator hummed. The house made the small sounds of a structure settling in the dark. She thought about every month that had passed, every pill, every memory gap, every moment she had doubted herself. She thought about all of it, and then she put it away. There would be time to feel it. Later. Right now she had work to do. She performed exhaustion perfectly through breakfast. Marcus made eggs. He poured coffee. He looked at her with the particular expression she now recognized as monitoring disguised as affection, watching for signs of compliance, checking that the system was working as expected. She gave him exhaustion and gratitude and vague confusion. She was a very good performer. "You seem tired, baby," he said, refilling her coffee cup. "I am. I slept, but I don't feel rested. I keep dreaming and not remembering the dreams. That happens with this medication sometimes. We should talk to Dr. Okafor." She had never met Dr. Okafor. She had never been in the same room as the man whose name was on her prescription bottles. The appointments Marcus described, the concerns Marcus claimed Okafor had expressed, none of it had ever happened. She understood this now. "Maybe you're right," she said. "I'll make an appointment." She watched satisfaction flicker across his face. That satisfaction was going to cost him everything. She drove to work with the windows down despite the Atlanta chill, needing the cold air against her face, needing to feel something sharp and real. She called Renee from the car. Renee answered on the first ring. "Dean, what's happening? I need you to listen and not react. Can you do that?" "Yes. Marcus has been overdosing my medication for 8 months. He's working with a psychiatrist named Okafor or Hammond, I heard both names, to have me declared mentally incompetent. He's been moving money into a joint account I don't remember opening. He has a power of attorney I don't remember signing. He is 60 days from filing a competency hearing." Silence on the line. Long silence. "Renee." "I knew," her sister said. Her voice was shaking with something that was not quite anger and not quite grief, but lived in the space between them. "I knew something was wrong. I have been keeping notes for months. I didn't know what I was building toward, but I knew. I know you knew. That's why I texted you last night. What do we do? We build a case. We do not move until it is airtight. Are you listening to me? We do not move until there is nothing he can explain away, nothing he can attribute to paranoia or medication or mental instability. We do this right. How long? As long as it takes. He's had 8 months. We can have 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Dean. That's... I know. But trust me." A pause. "I trust you," Renee said. "Tell me what you need." The list she gave Renee was specific and detailed. She needed everything available on a Dr. Hammond: full name, practice history, board memberships, any public records of complaints or disciplinary actions. She needed a private investigator who could work quickly and discreetly. She needed a forensic accountant who could trace financial transactions. She needed a criminal defense attorney who specialized in fraud and financial exploitation. She needed all of it quietly. That's without alerting Marcus or anyone connected to him. And Renee, don't tell Mom yet. Don't tell anyone. If Marcus hears even a breath of this, he will accelerate everything. Understood? I love you. I love you more. Be careful." She parked in her office garage and sat for a moment with her hands on the steering wheel. Then she got out of the car. She walked into her office with her head up and her shoulders back and her expression clear and present and completely in control. She had work to do. For the next 3 days, she executed on 2 levels simultaneously. On the surface, she was the version of herself that Marcus expected. Slightly foggy, slightly uncertain, deferring to his judgment, taking the pills he gave her, and secretly preserving each one in dated bags that she kept in a locked compartment of her work bag. Underneath, she was building a case that would end him. At work, she was the sharpest she had been in months. She took detailed notes. She caught errors. She ran a flawless department meeting on the first day, 3 hours of complex operational discussion that left her team looking slightly relieved, like people who had been worried about something they hadn't wanted to name. After the meeting, her deputy director, a steady woman named Claudette, who had worked alongside her for 7 years, stopped her in the hallway. "Nadine, you seem like yourself today." "Thank you, Claudette. I'm going to be honest with you because I respect you too much not to be. Some of us have been worried. The last few months, I know. Nadine said. "I've been dealing with a medical issue that's now being correctly addressed. I wanted you to know that." Claudette studied her for a long moment. "Is there anything I can do?" "Yes. If anyone asks about my performance or my state of mind, anyone, including my husband, I need you to document that conversation and tell me about it immediately." Claudette's eyes sharpened. "Is someone undermining you? I'll explain everything when I can. For now, can you do that for me?" "Of course." Pause. That evening, she met with the private investigator Renee had found, a woman named Darlene Washington who had spent 20 years in law enforcement before going private and who listened to Nadine's account with the stillness of someone who had heard many terrible things and had learned not to be visibly disturbed by them. "Tell me everything," Darlene said. "Start from the beginning." Nadine told her everything. When she finished, Darlene looked at her notes for a long moment. "You understand," she said, "that this is not unusual?" Nadine frowned. "What do you mean?" "What your husband is doing, the methodology, the deliberate cognitive impairment, the fabricated medical history, the financial positioning. I've seen versions of this before. Not often, but enough to recognize the pattern." She paused. "These operations require a sophisticated partner, someone with medical authority. You're Hammond. Tell me about Hammond. That's what I'm going to find out." Darlene called 4 days later. Nadine was in her car in the parking garage of her office building, the same spot she had taken to using for sensitive calls, away from the building's audio systems, away from any device Marcus might have compromised. "Dr. Raymond Hammond," Darlene said without preamble. Psychiatrist, 17 years in practice, no public disciplinary actions, well regarded in his professional community, board member of 2 healthcare organizations, golf buddy of your husband for at least 9 years. They knew each other before Marcus and I met, by at least 2 years, based on what I can find. Here's what's interesting. Hammond sits on the advisory board of a pharmaceutical distribution company that Marcus has a financial stake in. They're not just friends. They have shared financial interests, so Hammond isn't an unwitting participant. I don't believe so, and there's more. Darlene's voice was careful. "I found 3 women." "What?" "3 women over the past 12 years who filed complaints. 2 with medical boards, 1 with law enforcement, alleging that Hammond prescribed excessive medication that caused cognitive impairment while their spouses or partners positioned themselves to gain control of assets. All 3 complaints were withdrawn before any formal investigation." Long pause. They withdrew the complaints. One was offered a settlement that included a non-disclosure agreement. One relocated out of state under circumstances that suggest significant personal pressure. One, Darlene paused. One did not survive. The parking garage was very quiet. "What do you mean she didn't survive?" "Her death was ruled accidental, medication interaction. She had been heavily medicated for the 18 months preceding her death. Her husband collected a substantial life insurance payout." Another pause. "Her husband was not Marcus Webb." "Oh, but the methodology matches. Hammond has done this before. Hammond and various partners have done this before. It appears to be a practiced operation. Husband or partner identifies a target with significant assets. Hammond provides the medical infrastructure, prescriptions, evaluations, fabricated deterioration. And when the target is sufficiently compromised, a competency hearing strips them of autonomy and the partner gains conservatorship." Nadine pressed her hand flat against the steering wheel. She thought about the woman who had not survived. She thought about how close she had been to not surviving either, not in the same way, but close enough. "I need everything you have on Hammond," she said, "and I need to know if there are others. Women who went through this and didn't report, didn't fight back. I just disappeared into the system. I'm already looking. And Marcus. I need his financial picture. Everything he's been doing with my accounts, where the money is going, whether there are other accounts I don't know about. I have a forensic accountant who can work with you on that. She's good. Set it up." She ended the call. She sat for a moment longer in the quiet of the garage. She was not the first. She was not going to be the last, unless she stopped it. Music shifts, determined, inevitable. The forensic accountant was a compact, precise woman named Gloria, who arrived at Nadine's office with a laptop and the energy of someone who genuinely enjoyed following money trails to places people tried to hide them. She spent 4 hours working through Nadine's financial history. What she found was methodical and comprehensive and, in its way, almost impressive in its organization. The joint account opened 8 months ago, using a power of attorney signed during what Nadine now understood was a period of heavy medication. She had no memory of the signing, and the signature, when she examined it, had the slightly uncertain quality of someone who was not fully present. $87,000 had been transferred from her personal savings into that account in increments carefully calibrated to avoid triggering automatic alerts. 3 investment accounts had been restructured 6 months ago, with Marcus listed as co-manager. Nadine had no memory of authorizing this. Her retirement account had not been touched. Yet. But Gloria found a draft power of attorney document in a financial services portal that Marcus had apparently been preparing, designed to give him sole management authority over her retirement assets upon the filing of a conservatorship petition. He had been ready. He had been so ready. "He's been building this for at least a year," Gloria said, sitting back in her chair. Before the medication, before anything visible, he was positioning. The financial structure he's created would allow him to move everything within 72 hours of receiving conservatorship. How much? Total? Just over $2 million, including the home. $2 million. 8 months of her life, her health, her clarity, her confidence in her own mind. Can it be recovered? All of it, if we freeze the joint account and revoke the power of attorney before he files. But we need to move in the right order. If he finds out before the legal protections are in place, he could move money faster than we can freeze it. "Then we move in the right order," Nadine said. "Tell me exactly what we need to do." She assembled her team in a conference room at her attorney's office on a Thursday morning. Renee, who had driven up from Savannah and arrived with a box of files she had been quietly building for 4 months. Darlene Washington, who had enough information on Hammond to fill several folders. Gloria, with the forensic accounting picture complete. And Simone Baptiste, a criminal attorney who specialized in financial exploitation and who had, upon hearing the outline of the case, said, "I've been waiting for one of these to come through my office. Let's build something they cannot escape." Music, the team assembling. Something about to begin. Nadine stood at the head of the table and laid out everything she had. The recordings from the first night, the documented pills preserved in dated bags, the lab analysis she had run on 2 of them. Results showing sedative concentration 3 times the prescribed amount, plus an additional compound consistent with antipsychotic medication, a drug that in someone without psychosis produced paranoia, confusion, and memory disruption. He was manufacturing the symptoms, Simone said, studying the lab report, creating the very condition he was claiming to treat. Exactly. And Hammond's falsified records support the manufactured condition. 23 session notes. "I have never been in the same room as Raymond Hammond." Simone's expression did not change, but something behind her eyes sharpened considerably. Medical fraud, forgery, conspiracy. She was making a list. Illegal administration of controlled substances, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, though we'll need to establish the vulnerability was manufactured. A pause. Attempted. I'd argue the word is attempted, given what happened to Hammond's 3rd victim. The room was very quiet. "You think they intended to—" "I think," Simone said carefully, "that in previous operations this ended in ways that were convenient for the perpetrators. I think we need to treat this as seriously as possible." Nadine nodded. She had thought about the woman who had not survived. She had thought about her a great deal. "Here's my concern," she said. "If we go to law enforcement now, Marcus lawyers up immediately. The Hammond claims the prescriptions were legitimate medical judgments within his professional discretion. They argue I'm paranoid, that my allegations are evidence of the instability they've been documenting. With the medication still in my system, with the pattern they've created, it becomes complicated." "What do you want to do?" Darlene asked. "I want irrefutable evidence. I want them recorded in their own voices, confirming the conspiracy in terms specific enough that no defense attorney on earth can recontextualize it." "How do we get that?" Nadine looked at Darlene. "Marcus believes I'm going to make an appointment with Hammond to discuss my medication. He practically suggested it himself, so I'm going to make that appointment. And Hammond's office is going to be thoroughly documented before I walk into it." Darlene allowed herself a small smile. "I know a cleaning company. The plan took 4 days to execute. Darlene's team, former law enforcement, every one of them, handled the technical installation in Hammond's office with the precision of people who had done this many times before. Audio equipment in the ventilation. A secondary device in the artificial plant Hammond kept in the corner of his waiting room that Darlene described as the most reliable placement she knew. Nadine made the appointment through Marcus, letting him set it up, letting him believe he was managing her access to his collaborator. The night before the appointment, she lay in bed pretending to sleep and listened to Marcus on his phone. "She wants to meet with Hammond. I know. I think it's actually useful. He can document a real session. Real responses that fit the narrative." A pause. "No. She doesn't suspect anything. She just thinks the medication is too strong. She's going to ask him to reduce it. He should string her along, adjust something minor, keep her compliant for another few weeks." She recorded every word. Hammond's office was on the 14th floor of a medical building in Buckhead. Clean, prestigious, the walls lined with credentials and photographs of charitable events. He greeted her with the practiced warmth of a man accustomed to putting people at ease. She sat across from him and described her symptoms. The exhaustion, the memory gaps, the confusion, the feeling of disconnect from her own life. He listened. He nodded. He took notes. She watched his face and saw what she had learned to look for. The slight calculation beneath the empathy, the monitoring, the performance of concern. "Nadine," he said, leaning forward, "what you're describing is consistent with what your husband has been sharing with me. I want you to know that what you're experiencing is real, and it's treatable. The important thing is that you keep taking the medication as prescribed and trust the process." "Trust the process," she repeated. "Exactly. Your husband is very devoted to your recovery. You're lucky to have him." She smiled. "I know," she said. "I really am." On the way out, she walked through the waiting room past the artificial plant in the corner. She did not look at it. She did not need to. Darlene was already listening. Hammond called Marcus from his office 40 minutes after Nadine left. The equipment captured everything. "She came in," Hammond said, "presented exactly as you described. Foggy and uncertain, asking about reducing the medication." "And?" "I told her to stay the course. She won't push back. She's too compliant at this point." Marcus's satisfaction was audible even through the recording. "Good. The competency filing is ready. I want to move within 2 weeks. The session notes are finalized. 23 visits, complete documentation of deteriorating cognitive function, failed memory tests, erratic behavior patterns. It's solid. And if she has an attorney look at the medical records, they're formatted correctly. The diagnoses are legitimate categories. The documentation is internally consistent. Any challenge would require a counter-evaluation, which by that point, she won't have the legal standing to request." "What about the sister?" "The sister has no standing. If she becomes a problem, and her concern will read as family denial. It's textbook. How confident are you?" "Raymond, I've done this before." Marcus's voice was smooth, certain. Different circumstances, different women, same result. We're fine. Different women, same result. Darlene played this section 3 times when she brought the recordings to Simone. Simone listened to all of it without expression. When it finished, she set down her pen. This is the clearest conspiracy recording I have heard in 16 years of practice. Is it enough? Combined with the lab analysis, the falsified records, the financial documentation, and the testimony of the 3 previous victims Darlene has located? Yes. She paused. More than enough. The previous victims will testify? 2 of them will. The 3rd is still working through it. Simone looked at Nadine directly. Oh, you gave them permission to. You're the first one who fought back completely. You're the reason they feel safe enough to speak. Nadine absorbed that. When do we go to law enforcement? Tomorrow morning. I've already spoken with the district attorney's office. Rebecca Hayes is handling this personally. She has been looking for a case against Hammond for 3 years. A pause. She was very interested to hear from me. The arrest happened on a Tuesday morning, not at his office, not in front of a crowd. At 7:15 in the morning, in the kitchen of the home they shared, while Marcus stood at the counter making coffee in the particular efficient way he had, Nadine sat at the kitchen table and watched 3 law enforcement officers walk through the front door that she had unlocked for them from her phone 30 seconds earlier. Marcus turned. He saw the officers. He saw Nadine. His face went through a sequence of expressions that took less than 3 seconds and told her everything she had needed to know for 8 months. Surprise, calculation, the rapid assessment of options, and underneath all of it, in the fraction of a second before the performance reassembled itself, fear. Marcus Webb, the lead officer, said, "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, illegal administration of controlled substances, forgery of medical records, financial exploitation, and conspiracy to commit involuntary commitment fraud." He looked at Nadine. She met his gaze. "You knew," he said. "I knew. How long?" "Long enough." They handcuffed him in the kitchen. The coffee maker beeped, finished with its cycle, indifferent. He did not speak again. Across the city, at the same moment Raymond Hammond was being arrested at his office, as patients arrived for morning appointments, as his credentials watched from the walls, as the careful performance of 30 years of respectability collapsed in the space of 4 minutes. Both of their offices were being searched simultaneously. Both of their financial accounts were being frozen. Everything they had built against her was being dismantled in the same efficient, methodical way they had tried to dismantle her. Nadine watched Marcus's car leave in the back of a law enforcement vehicle. Then she went inside and made herself a cup of coffee. She sat at the kitchen table in the quiet house and wrapped her hands around the warm mug and breathed. Renee arrived 20 minutes later, letting herself in with her key, and sat down across from her without saying anything. They sat together in the quiet for a long time. Finally, Renee said, "You good?" Nadine thought about it. "Not yet," she said honestly. "But I'm going to be." The trial lasted 3 weeks. Nadine testified for 2 days. She walked into that courtroom with the composure of someone who had spent 8 months being told she was losing her mind and had chosen, instead, to use her mind to destroy the people who said so. She was clear. She was specific. She was devastating. The defense tried. They argued paranoia. They argued medication-induced delusion. They presented Marcus as a devoted husband, overwhelmed by his wife's decline, making difficult decisions out of love. The recordings ended that argument. When his voice filled the courtroom, she's compliant, manageable, and by the time this is done, her credibility will be completely destroyed. The jury's expression did not change. But something in the room did. The 2 previous victims testified. They told their stories in their own words, in their own time, with the particular dignity of women who had been silenced for years and were finally being heard. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Marcus Webb was sentenced to 22 years. Raymond Hammond received 26 years and the permanent revocation of his medical license. 3 additional investigations were opened into cases from the previous decade. 6 months after the sentencing, Nadine stood in her home office, the room that used to be Marcus's private domain, now transformed. Bright and open, with the walls painted the exact shade of green she had always wanted, and finished the last page of the report she was submitting to the state legislature on pharmaceutical manipulation and conservatorship fraud. It was detailed, specific, and designed to close the legal gaps that had allowed Marcus and Hammond to operate for over a decade. Her phone buzzed. A message from a woman she had never met, referred by Darlene, who wrote, "I think my husband is doing something similar to me. I've been so confused. I thought I was losing my mind. Your name was given to me. Can we talk?" Nadine read the message. She set down her pen. She thought about 8 months of fog and fear and the slow erosion of herself. She thought about the woman who had not survived. She thought about what it had cost to wake up, and what it had been worth. Then she picked up her phone and called the number. "I'm here," she said when the woman answered. "You are not imagining it, and you are not alone." Nadine's story is not unusual in its details. It is unusual only in its ending. Most of these operations succeed, not because the women inside them are weak, but because the fog is deliberate, the isolation is deliberate, the erosion of self-trust is deliberate. Because by the time you realize what is happening, you have already been convinced you cannot trust your own perception. But here is what Nadine proved. The fog is not permanent. The instinct underneath it, the small voice that said something is wrong, not with you to you, that voice does not fully silence. And when you listen to it, when you act on it, when you gather your evidence and build your case and refuse to be manageable, the people who counted on your silence discover that they miscalculated. If this story stayed with you, if it opened your eyes to something, I need you to do 3 things. Hit the like button. It tells the algorithm that stories like this matter and need to be heard. Leave a comment. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me your location. Tell me if you or someone you know has experienced something like this. These conversations matter. And share this video with someone who needs it, someone who is confused, someone who is doubting themselves, someone who needs to hear that their instincts are real and their story deserves to be told. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week, I bring you stories of people who faced extraordinary darkness and found their way back to themselves. I will see you in the next one.